Disarmament is the story that is shaping politics day in, day out. We have the cabinet and the prime minister and the president all more or less in line with that sub-state disarmament has to come to an end. How it ends, maybe that's up for interpretation right now. But short of that, do you see that war is on the horizon?
And let me start by saying that we don't trust the Israel's intentions, of course. I mean, they are a state who have been living out of occupation, living out of suppression, out of apartheid. So we don't trust the Israeli state, that's for sure. So from that point, I cannot see any way but for us to Lebanese that we come together under one sovereign state so we can be united in addressing the possibilities or the possible threats that they might come from Israel. So, I mean, disarmament in that regard is our entry point to a sovereign state and united Lebanese population, Lebanese people. So for me, this is the main thing. I mean, the Hezbollah arms have been a very divisive issue, as you might well know, for the past, I don't know, 2-3 decades. And it's about time that we resolve this issue, especially after the last war and after 7 October and the initiation of the support front by Hezbollah and the kind of catastrophe that resulted from there on. So for me, this is the entry point. I mean, if we focus on whatever can bring these Lebanese people together, this is the point of strength of us. So we can stand up for any possible threats, we can stand up for any pressures, we can formulate our own solutions for our own problems and find our own approaches to things. That is, if we are united and we work in an institutional framework. So far, I mean, we have taken the first steps towards that. And I believe that the President On or Prime Minister Salam, they have been taking serious steps to those and courageous steps to be honest, and the cabinet as well. And I think that we're going the right direction, and that's what matters for me in that regard.
Where we are in terms of maybe the capabilities of the government versus the likelihood that this is not something that will be solved soon. In other words, it's a risky endeavor, even if things were moving smoothly.
Right.
But it doesn't look like the army is going to confront Hezbollah militarily. At least indicators are that there's no appetite for that risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yet there is a monthly report that has to be issued by the army.
That's the key thing there.
Right.
That's the key thing.
If disarmament is kicked down to the next government, in other words, and I know this is another, let's assume that it does not happen according to the deadlines that were first spelled out.
Right. I mean, let me just jump in here. I think we need to break down the issue of disarmament. It's not something like, it's not a button you press, even over 3 months.
Yeah.
To be honest, we all know the challenges. It's been 8 months, and the army has been working day in, day out, south of Litani, to dismantle the military setup, or that is for Hezbollah there. So it's gonna take time. The question for me is not how short of time we're gonna do it. The question for me, are we gonna be consistent about it and giving the right message to the Lebanese people and to the international community that our state had regained its sovereignty and its decision and are serious, and they were serious about the exclusivity or monopoly of arms to the state. I think that's the thing that we should be focusing on. So if the 3 months time period that was estimated or that was anticipated at the time where the decision was taken by the cabinet is not enough, fair. I think we can explain that. But we have to be very consistent and giving the right message over and over again by a very, assertive implementation of disarmament on the ground by assertive actions taken by the state on demonstrating the rule of law. It's that the rule of law concept is back in practice. And because this is what the Lebanese have been asking for, and this is what the international community has been asking for. They want a trustworthy and a decision-making state that will commit to its decisions and find ways to implement them and execute them. That's the gap that we've been suffering, and this armament will come anyhow. If I may say, because already after the last war, the arms of Hezbollah are obsolete. I mean, they have no any justification now as it had before. I mean, the justification, the claim for that it was used as a part of a deterrent equation or as part of protecting Lebanon. I mean, all those have gone now. So there is no justification or rationale to maintain the arms outside the state. Right now, I think it's a matter of time. It's about being consistent and trying to address certain concerns along the way of the disarmament that can save us internal turmoil.
I'll push one more step in this subject. How would you measure the success of this government with the time that it has into next year on disarmament? Would it look like south of the Litani is the key priority and north of the Litani is an internal matter? Or would it look like negotiations with more Palestinian factions and more disarmament within the camps, and Hezbollah is a long-term status that could last years, not months? I'm trying to see how we should measure success or failure on this topic. And I know the government has limited time anyway.
They have limited time, they have limited capacity, they have limited funding, and this government have inherited a semi-failed state. So we are. It's not an easy point to start from.
Yeah.
So, and regarding the KPI, I think what we really should be focusing on multiple of tracks where you can evaluate the progress that the government have made. I think one, as you mentioned, the kind of arms that are being collected either from south of Litani, for me, Beirut, or Greater Beirut, is a very symbolic area because it's the capital after all. And once we regain Beirut free from arms, that would be a huge step forward, I believe. So, but I wouldn't stop at just the disarmament part. For me, the KPI should include how much the Lebanese people feel confident that the rule of law is coming back in practice. Somehow you feel that there is the state has taken back its position, a neutral position vis-a-vis the Lebanese, that they are all equal, and they feel that this equality is back to a large extent in public life. I mean, once you have that, you are at a really different position from where we are. And this is, for me, both of these tracks are good KPIs to measure the progress. Of course, the disarming of the Palestinian camps is very important. I know we're halfway through that, at least for the heavy arms part.
Is it halfway already?
I think they did. I think they did a good. They did some good work in that. I think.
So I thought it was just Fatah and certain, but that's already.
Yeah, I think they did good. They did a good progress on that, and I think that, if you, like I said, if by end of, for example, by the end of the year we have a south of Lebanon is free from arms outside the state, and you have Beirut as well, free from arms outside the state, and you see the public space is free from any political symbols or political pictures, or it's back to neutrality. That's what really reflects the power of the state and the presence of the state. These are very symbolic gestures that I think they're not as simple to deal with, but I think they're very important KPIs of how far the the state is going to enforce the rule of law again.
So if I understood you right, just to wrap up this portion, the threat of war from Israel is consistent. At the same time, for someone in your shoes as a member of parliament and someone who largely supports the government's agenda, if not entirely, that you would see success as the disarmament of sub-state infrastructure south of the Litani and the greater Beirut region as a measure of success. And therefore, you'd be more comfortable endorsing the government, or perhaps
As a first step, of course.
as a first
As
step.
a first step, of course. We
Yeah.
don't stop at the south of Litani and
Mhm.
Greater Beirut.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the government decision that was taken on the 5th of September was very strict on the transportation of arms is completely prohibited now. I mean, even if you have arms stocked
Yeah.
somewhere or stored somewhere, you're
Yeah.
not allowed. You will be faced with severe repercussions if you try to move it from one place to the other. So, I mean, this is the kind of... There are a lot of details we can get into, the technical details, but I think these kind of approaches, incremental approaches that you can build on and really project the kind of approach that the state is taking towards the arms outside the state.
And it's unfair to ask for more at this current juncture by the end of the year. So that's, I guess, what I'm getting from you. So we shouldn't...
I really can't tell if they can
yeah.
do more or not.
Yeah.
It's very technical things, to be honest, Ronnie. We can always push the limits, but we know how much the army, what kind of burden they're carrying, how many issues they have to deal with. They have to deal with our borders, they have to deal with Israeli threats, they have to deal with the disarming of Hezbollah and other factions, they have to deal with internal security, they have to deal with drug smuggling, they have to deal with so many things.
Yeah.
So it's a huge burden on the army. And with the kind of capacity they have, I understand that they will not be able to deliver all that as fast as we want.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that with whatever capacity we have right now, we should be consistent, diligent, and assertive. I mean, these are the three things that we need to project always and try to maintain to regain the confidence of international community and of the Lebanese people.
Those three indicators, more than deadlines or cosmetic dates, the reason I'm going back to the deadline is I thought of this government as under pressure from day one, that it's a short-term government that it's anticipated to do a lot more than we could maybe expect on day one. But it set those deadlines up for themselves. That's not things that we put on them.
Right.
That's where I'm curious of why there's monthly progress report today versus the need to disarm by the end of the year. I saw that perhaps as it's not a setback, but it's willingly taking one step back from the anticipation of confrontation.
I believe it's more realistic, to be honest. I think it's more realistic to have progress reports in any project we do. And I come from from an urban planning background, architectural background. We do progress reports all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only fair that you have progress reports so you know that you're consistently working towards a target.
Yeah.
Sometimes in our projects we get some delays. Sometimes we get unforeseen events that would delay the work. This always happens.
Yeah.
But what we need to do is make sure that throughout our time frame, we're working consistently towards our goal. But not that after 3 or 4 months, we are surprised that we weren't doing a consistent work, and then the problem would get worse. So I think the bringing in a monthly progress report, I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
At least it will bring a transparency on how things are happening to the government, and from there on to the parliament and to the Lebanese people.
I will circle back to the success or failure of the government on other issues at the end. I want to jump now a bit back in time, not too far back, months back, where I last saw you, which was in Martyrs Square, at the launch of a municipal endeavor, the Beirut Medinati list, and everything that happened thereafter. We don't have to get too detail oriented, but just the mood on the street, the way you see it, for change going into next year's elections. I know it's a bit early. I know it's 9 months away, if not a bit. Well, actually, it's 9 months away.
It's 9 months, almost
away.
9 months, yeah.
And we both know how time goes by so fast. And I think we will be talking probably closer to the elections about things that we never imagined could happen. There's a lot of variables that could happen between now and then. But the appetite you saw on the street and the appetite for what brought you into parliament, and then next year's elections, how you see the movement next year, and whether or not you see it as more...
You mean the change movement?
The change movement, but a change movement that's allowed to change as well. I don't think it's forced to be one thing. But whether or not you see something happening, which you tell me if I'm seeing it the wrong way, I think you're becoming a de facto leader of what was once change. And I think you've held on to that even when there's pressure to shift gears. You may well end up being something that no one imagined years ago, which was a more fluid movement, that it's being concentrated around individuals.
Right.
And I think of you as one of those leaders moving forward. The reason I say leader is because you took a risk, which I think is enviable. You put your name in the hat for prime minister, and then less than 48 hours, a domino effect that brought Nawaf Salam into power. A lot of factors played their part. It's not just your decision that brought Nawaf Salam.
True.
But that's what leadership looks like to me in regards to change. So how you see the mood for it next year, and whether or not you feel like it'll be a less coalition-like thing and more individual feel.
Well, I believe, that the mood has changed quite a bit. You know,
no pun intended.
Pardon?
No pun intended.
So we have to acknowledge that we saw it in the municipal elections. We need to deal with things differently. I appreciate that. It's clear for me. But what I think will happen is that by the time 2026 elections comes, we would need to have really, to come together and bring everything that we have done in the past 4 years to light. Just put it together and put it out to the Lebanese people there to judge if we did good or we didn't good. Because I've always said that, I feel in the elections, the next elections, somehow I don't feel like, you have to do too much, because whatever work we have done in the past 4 years would be the things upon which people will judge you. Of course, we will be doing the campaigning and everything.
Yeah.
But it's like, when you're going to an exam, if you did your proper studying, then you wouldn't worry about the exam.
Right.
And if you didn't do it right, then I don't know if you'll be able to do something about it in the last 48 hours, for example. So that's the way I see it. I think that as change MPs, myself and other colleagues, we've done a lot of work. There's always attempts to undermine the kind of work that we've done. What kind of change did these guys bring? They didn't deliver anything. We hear all this all the time. But the fact is, since we were there, I believe the whole dynamics in the parliament has changed. And this is not something I say myself. This is something I hear from people who work in the parliament from other political parties. They don't say it maybe publicly, but they say it to us. And we see the kind of dynamics that are happening in the committees, in the parliaments, and in the elections. And a few major milestones. Once we were able to block the elections of Hezbollah's candidates, Sulaiman Franjiyeh, Minister Sulaiman Franjiyeh, then we were able to push for and help in electing President Joseph Aoun, and then we had contributed largely to the nomination or designation of Prime Minister Nawaf Salam. So we did really good work there, not to mention the work that happened in the committees and a lot of laws and the financial in the financial laws, many battles we had, and at the local levels in the districts that we represent, the kind of communications and constant engagement with our constituency. So there is a lot of work there, and I'm sure part of our communication during the upcoming campaign, this will be brought up. But, coming back to your question regarding if it's going to be a coalition or individuals, I think it's going to be both. It needs to be both. There is a de facto way that will happen on the personalities, on the person themselves, the kind of attitude, character, and the kind of deliverables that they were able to bring themselves. And there is the political umbrella within which these individuals are situated, because I think the next phase is going to be very different from the past 4 years. The next phase, we're going to be seeing Hezbollah arms issue come to closure, I hope soon. And then we will be engaging in building our state. And this requires a different skill set, to be honest. I think a skill set that not many traditional political parties have. And I believe this is our opportunity. It's our duty to bring a vision, an elaborate vision of this coming phase for the elections in 2026 or even before, so we can show it to the people and demonstrate it and get some get confidence on it by electing us to implement that plan.
I think it's unfair for the change, what was once the change coalition, if you will, the October 17 MPs. I think what's unfair is that a lot of things happened due to war, and a lot of things changed as a result of war too. And I think a lot of what
presidential vacuum, yes, there was a lot of constraints there. Yeah.
Not everything you listed, but I think the majority was possible post-war, post last year. So that I think is unfair for somebody that entered parliament and then got bogged down by everything else. And I mean,
we still pushed back. We still fought.
The fight continued.
Absolutely.
In different ways. Some ways were interesting, some maybe were short-sighted. I mean, it included MPs sleeping in parliament. That's as far as it went. It went very far in directions that didn't seem. I think every avenue was explored. And then
I mean, every one of us put something of him or herself into politics.
Right. And I think that's actually fine.
Milham did it his way, and others did it the other way.
Yeah.
And I think this is the element that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
I mean, you have two components to the next elections. There is the umbrella, the coalition that you mentioned, the political label that will be tagging us, along with the vision that we'll be carrying. Plus, there is the individual personalities and their individual contributions, and let people judge then on those two things combined.
Right, and even the way certain MPs had falling out with other MPs among the same group, everyone handled their career their own way. I think what's unfair, though, is that a lot of things, majority, if not all those MPs wanted to see happen, could not happen without war. And I think that a lot of people will not judge them fairly. What you said earlier about accomplishments in the last 4 years, sort of identifying them and showing them, I think a lot of people will not notice those accomplishments due to politics. And I think there's a disadvantage, a serious disadvantage next year, to the point that maybe only a handful of the names return. And that's where I get worried about the name and what to expect. I'll ask it in a better way. Do you think it takes different names and different individuals to move forward? Do you think it requires a fresh start again?
No, I'm sure that we will have new names who will get the chance to present themselves as potential MPs for the next parliament. But at the same time, I wouldn't deny my colleagues the opportunity to get the feedback maybe gain their confidence or maybe not gain the confidence from the Lebanese people on the kind of work they did for the past 4 years or 3 years for now.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't dismiss any of my colleagues, to be honest. I think each and every one of us did their best. So let's see what people think then.
Yeah.
But for me, of course, I feel that on many political levels, I'm much closer to some MPs, and I feel much more aligned with them politically than others. But then again, that goes back not on the individual, personal evaluation. That goes on the kind of umbrella and the political vision that we will be carrying united for the next elections.
I'll ask one more question on this topic. Do you think there has to be a victory scored by the end of this parliament's term beyond what has happened already? And I'll throw an example. The banking restructuring proposal has to be endorsed and backed by the change bloc. Do you need that kind of circumstance to change?
Look, I don't think there is any kind of parliamentary bloc who would be able to make achievements per se. It's not like that. Parliament doesn't function like that. You're not an executive branch there.
Yeah.
You're not going to build an airport all of a sudden or come up with a huge plan for the country, or you're not going to be able to. It's not like that.
Yeah.
Parliament is about an accumulative work of accountability and legislation. That's the main role of us. And there is, as I mentioned, a role for the individual MPs on their engagement with their constituency and maintaining contact and being transparent and informative. So I don't think there will be any kind of achievement. I don't see any parliamentary bloc who've done a kind of how do I say this, a turning point achievement upon which they change or tip the balance differently. What we need to do is really bring everything together that we've done in the past 3-4 years and present it in a very transparent way and demonstrate for the Lebanese people the kind of situations and the kind of constraint that we had in the past 3-4 years, through which we had to endure and still deliver what we have delivered, which I think it was a lot. It wasn't easy. We worked with so little resources. We were constantly under smearing campaigns by media.
That's true.
It wasn't easy at all. So if you put everything together, I think it would be fair for the Lebanese people to judge us upon those. And I'm very confident that we did well on that. The rest is for the Lebanese people to judge.
But if I could take it from parliament to the government, do you think the government has to achieve a victory beyond what has been done already to see someone like Nawaf Salam return? And I know I'm taking it one step further, but he's, I think, somebody that both of us admire and you voted for. I mean, I can't see someone like you challenging Nawaf Salam. That's something, to me, it's alien. It could happen maybe under very different circumstances.
Challenging in what sense?
Trying to unseat him. I can't see that happening. That to me is so outlandish. I can dismiss it.
I was thinking of something more in opposition. Parliament, or maybe.
I see you more, if anything, as positive pressure when needed, but I can't see you as putting your name against him. Right. So I assume he will still be your preferred candidate next year,
right? Unless
something major happens, but that's too big of a variable. Do you think they need to achieve something as a government, not necessarily parliamentary legislation, but I go back to the banking restructuring proposal that has yet to happen. I would assume that something radical has to happen for this kind of government to return. And the reason I'm saying this, I assume there are many people that want to unseat Nawaf Salam. And I assume those are the names that challenged him last year, or earlier this year.
Right.
And I don't think they've gone anywhere. If anything, they're probably looking at every opportunity to undermine him.
Right. Every achievement that this government makes will definitely reflect positively on us, for sure. I think they've done quite a bit as well. You have to always remember where we came from, we came from a position where we had no state, we had no respect, we had no trust from the Lebanese people or from outside. We were in a very bad situation, and the institutions, the government institutions, are slowly disintegrating, and many issues. I think things are coming back. We would have hoped that it would have been faster, on a faster pace, but I think that they've done a lot as far. Just the issue of the arms by itself is a huge leap forward, but I think the dynamics of 2026 will determine the kind of coming phase. It's still very unclear to me how the kind of landscape would come out in 2026. In 6 months, 8 months, 9 months from now, a million things could happen in Lebanon.
Sure,
to be
that's
honest. So it's really difficult to tell, but again, the kind of accumulation that this government is doing is overall positive, and I think the Lebanese will appreciate it, and I think that they are still supporting the government and Prime Minister and the President, and sorry, that's for me is still on the positive side. So
I'll ask it a little more bluntly, and I can put this on the government rather than Parliament. Do you want to see something achieved so that your candidacy is more secure and Nawaf Salam's prime ministership continues? Are you looking for, is it KPI? Is that,
you like the KPIs? I never knew you were a KPI guy.
I mean, I've heard it twice today, so it's always around. Do you want a solid achievement done, even if it's very difficult, to make the transition to next year easier, rather than having this sort of back? You're always trying to defend. On the contrary, it's like no, this is an easy sell.
Listen, we started the interview with talking about the rule of law,
right?
And I think, don't expect like the kind of achievements we'll have a new airport terminal, or that's not the kind of thing that you should be expecting. People are expecting equality, rule of law, transparency, accountability. These are the starting points, and I believe if the government is able to demonstrate that, being assertive, the judiciary, if we have, for example, a breakthrough in that.
So referring to Tariq Bitar, for example, that kind of...
Tariq Bitar, Riyad Salemi, and you have a lot of issues there to address.
Yeah.
You have the rule of law, like we said, between the Lebanese people, equality. If you have some tangible achievements there, and they don't have to be that big, but they have to be very telling on the kind of pattern that we'll be seeing in the future, and they're consistently repeated, then yes, I think this would help us a lot. This would definitely help us in the next election.
So it's a more blanket policy rather than scoring specific points. In other words,
the Lebanese are very skeptical and cynical about one interjection or one achievement there. We're very easily skeptical of the continuity of those achievements. So you really need to establish patterns of behavior, different kind of behavior, political behavior and practice and governing.
Yeah.
And this is what's going to regain confidence.
Yeah.
You have to show the Lebanese that things have changed. And it doesn't, for me, come at one interjection or one achievement, punctual achievement here or there. It's about a consistent change of pattern of behavior. And this is, I believe, what could turn things around for us.
I hope that happens regardless. It would be nice to see the years ahead looking like a more governable state is coming back together. But I'm a bit hard on expectation. I think a Tariq Bitar closure or a names and proof and wrapping up that that would be a great sell for this government.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I mean, but again, yani, this is not something we can intervene in. This is
Right.
something we could hope for, that
Yeah.
Judge Bitar would be able to come with an outcome that really satisfies or regains the confidence of the Lebanese people and the judiciary.
Yes.
This is something we should look for. But I mean, you cannot just keep your hopes on, because we cannot intervene in that.
Sure. Absolutely. But that kind of big movement ahead, I think, would make a lot of lives easier next elections to
Right.
run and to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other one is some reasonable banking restructuring plan would be the biggest victory for this government, if it's
It's
possible.
not the bank restructuring, the gap resolution, to be honest. Because, yeah, I think the gap resolution is one of the biggest battles that we've been trying to fight for since our...
Since day one. Yeah.
Since day one, absolutely. Since we got into parliament. We
it would
still don't have a draft law for that, sorry.
Yeah. No, sorry. I was going to say, exactly.
No, we still don't have anything from the government on that side, but
Yeah.
I know they're working on it. I think this would be the biggest battle,
Yeah.
upcoming battle, because it will determine who will carry the losses, who will be having the liabilities on the gap, what we call the gap, financial gap. And this would reflect a lot the kind of justice we have in this country.
Right.
It's actually Tariq Bitar and August 4 file and the gap resolution. These are two very important files on
Yes.
justice in this country. So if there is justice, then you will see the kind of how these losses are being distributed fairly,
Right.
fairly. And if not, then we have an issue there.
And I think that could still happen. And maybe it's not. Time is. There is. Everyone's pressed on time, but I think it could still happen. Am I?
Could? What do you mean? Yeah.
In other words, this is something this government could still put to a vote.
Yeah. And
It's-
I think we will have. We were
Yeah.
promised that we will have the gap ready maybe in October, I guess. So
Yeah.
let's just wait and see. But for me, it's what kind of gap law we will be having. So we're getting ready for that as well.
Well, I mean, I think everyone has been waiting for that for so long too, and then
Yeah.
everything else went wrong in the meantime.
Mhm.
But I'll ask you a more personal question in your political career. I'm assuming it's a done deal that you will run next year. I can't see you not running, so I hope I'm right in that. It's unlikely you're running next year.
Okay.
I assume you are.
Well, I assume so too.
Good. Okay, so the assumption is there. Yes. You're still an independent candidate, despite being part of the change bloc, and despite having endorsed this government. You're an independent MP. You're allowed to change your mind as you see fit. Are there red lines that you see established where if the government makes certain decisions, you would remove your support or perhaps seek to become prime minister again? It doesn't have to be under the same circumstance.
I mean, a red line would have been the sovereignty of our country. That's for
Okay.
sure.
Could you maybe explain that? So that would mean no monthly progress report and ignoring
I mean,
this
if
issue.
we felt that the government wasn't serious about implementing 1701 and Taif Accord and the ceasefire agreement, then there would have been a problem. But I mean, withdrawing your confidence from a government, it will take a number of disappointments, or
Yeah.
a number of deviation from what we expected or divergences.
Yeah.
So it's not a red line per se. I mean, other than sovereignty. But I think that if you have, for me at least, if you feel that there is a kind of constant, tolerance with corruption or constant ambiguity about or non-assertiveness with files like reform files or corruption, then you draw the governance. But so far I think the independent judiciary law, we would have wanted it differently, to be honest.
Okay.
It wasn't our the kind of form it got into, it wasn't the ideal form for us.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still a step forward.
Right.
And regardless, this government is making a serious effort, and we compare this government not to some absolute idealistic vision of what a government is. I mean, we compare it to the previous governments, or what we had, what kind of practice they did, what kind of political behavior they had. This is a very different government, and I appreciate the work that the government is doing on the cabinet level and on the individual ministers level. We see ministers doing some hard work, and we should really commend them for that.
What I'll commend you for, and this is a personal observation, what I like is people that drop purity tests and don't want to see 100% ideological positioning. I think the fact that you're able to see the government this way shows that you've already maybe accepted that not everything will go exactly the way you want it. And that's part of the story too. That there's
Of course.
It's a built-in compromising nature. I think those that are most at risk of losing are the purity test MPs that see absolutes.
Ronnie, it's very difficult in politics. I mean, for me, it's something that I had to learn. What kind of threshold that you would draw for yourself, where to support and where not to support and be opposition, where to give confidence or where not take back your confidence. These are thresholds that are constantly maturing. You come from from a certain expectations. I mean, if you put the threshold or the bar too high, you will always be the opposition who's always
bitter and marginal.
Unhappy with the performance. Maybe this is something you need in parliament. For me, I think being objective and evaluating each of the achievements or the actions of the government independently, and assessing it and putting it out to the Lebanese public to understand the evaluation of that is very important for the political awareness of the Lebanese people, and then putting those in an accumulation format and then evaluating the whole performance overall. Then you can decide for yourself as an MP if you're happy or you're satisfied with the performance or not.
Right.
But I mean, just taking one individual incident, putting the bar too high, I mean, you will never be happy and you'll never get anywhere.
Well, it's good to see you happier than other MPs that are perhaps not as happy.
I'm glad we reached the point where we'd be a bit slightly happier.
I think it's okay also to, after everything that has happened since this group entered parliament, since the last election, there are moments to actually celebrate. And I think I heard you say it in different ways that the solid red line was the disarmament issue. It has to be taken seriously. And I agree with you. This government is taking it seriously. Whether or not it can happen now or later, I think that's up for debate. But it's definitely on their agenda and it's a priority. That's a huge success story. In our lifetime, we saw a government do this.
Correct. We're living a historic moment, to be honest.
I want to give you the chance to ask me a question because I think that's okay. I don't usually do this on the podcast. No, I want to because I'm sure at some point when you're on the way here, I'm sure there are certain things that maybe you'd want to.
I was just rushing to get in time.
You're just rushing to get here? You don't have anything for me? Give me a hard question. Give me something tough. We're not the same person. You're a gifted politician. You had thousands of people endorse you. You decided to pursue a very difficult Beirut Medinati endeavor that we know was very difficult even on a good day, but you stuck to your guns. You accept defeat and you accept it. It's not like you're hunkering down and bitter about it. You're able to close certain chapters and move forward, and you found different ways to do it. I like the way you, even when you're not comfortable making a decision, the language you use, it's fine. And I always say this with you, but drink the poison if you need to. You voted for an unlikely candidate, Jihad Azor, and you found a way to justify it. Now, poison aside, that means that there's a quick, there's something about the way you've approached politics that attracts me. Because I don't think it should be 100% in line all the time. I think that's
Correct.
impossible.
Absolutely true.
So that's my way of saying I like talking to you.
Oh.
But throw one question at me.
Well, if I had to throw a question at you, hmm. Well, I think
Here we go.
I don't want to make it too personal. Okay,
No, you can make it personal. Make it as personal as you
no,
want.
no. I'll stick to politics. So you've been interviewing over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been watching your show for God knows.
God love. That's always a bad.
How old are you now?
Well, I've aged a bit since starting. Yeah.
And and I'm sure you've seen so many politicians, you've interviewed so many activists, and you've been part of part of different phases of this country, and from an observer kind of, because you were interviewing.
Yeah.
So, how does this moment relate to you? How do you feel about it, given all that you've been through, all our country has been through? When you see this government taking such decisions, how does that make you feel? How do you look at it?
The big disappointment for me is that most of those decisions were not taken by us.
Right.
There's a huge disappointment in that. A lot of what changed in the last 2 years,
As Lebanese, you mean?
as Lebanese and as people that were pursuing politics in different ways,
Right.
yeah, it's disappointing that this was not in our hands. And I think the flip side of it is it shows that what brought us here wasn't in our hands too. So this is I feel more and more that circumstance prevented many people from achieving more earlier. And
Isn't this the kind of, how do I say this? That's life, right? I mean, for me, I'm going back to my position now, not as
Yeah, sure.
the interviewer.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. And, yeah, please answer. I'm kidding.
It's about appreciating the circle of control that you have, and as well understanding and appreciating the area outside your control, right?
Yeah, in most ways, that's actually an interesting human experience, except in Lebanese politics, because it's been so dismal. It would have been nice that one of these things was completely thanks to us. I would have liked to see something that I could say, no, despite it all, that happened. Now, maybe when you look back in time, maybe not all of it is in vain. Maybe it takes a lot of building blocks.
True.
And they're always brought down too. But I just don't know, and I'm being I'm being as balanced as I can. I don't think Nawaf Slam is a superhero. And the fact that he's doing things that are heroic have less to do with him and more to do with circumstance. And the reason I'm saying this is because somebody like Nawaf Slam couldn't have done more 20 years ago. Somebody like him would have been doing much less, and we would be disappointed by him 10 years ago. And I think it's not about the people. I think it's circumstance. It allows good people to do more.
Of course.
Yeah.
But a good person would always show as a good person.
Absolutely.
That's
100%. 100%.
But Nawaf 20 years ago, and you would have probably seen a good man trying to do his best, and you would have
100%.
appreciated.
Yes.
And then you'd have seen, well, circumstances didn't allow him to do as much.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but I think it's a bit unrealistic or a bit harsh not to put the circumstances in the equation in evaluating someone's work.
Yeah.
You cannot dissociate someone from the context
Exactly.
within they are working.
Exactly.
So putting it together, and then you can have the as much objective of an evaluation you can have.
Yeah, I completely agree. And actually, I think this should go across the board. people that are trying to do the same thing that others tried to do earlier, if they're getting further now, I don't think it's because the person is better. And I'll give you an example. I can think of many individuals in the last 30 years that are pretty much speaking the same language as the Nawab Slim government today. So I don't think of them as less capable.
Of course not.
Right. It was
But they were a
circumstance.
build-up towards
Exactly. Yeah.
this moment in time. Maybe
100%.
us as well.
Yeah.
We don't come from nothing.
Right.
You know, we come as a result of a whole range of activism that's been the past decades happening in our country. So it's only fair to give these people credit. They've given a lot along the years.
Sure.
Maybe they didn't get their share of the spotlight. Maybe they didn't get their share of what they deserve of appreciation. But for me, I owe it to them, and the Lebanese people should owe it to all of those people who are putting up the fight on behalf of the Lebanese people to have a better country. Yeah.
So that's honestly, to answer the question, I think of the moment as circumstance has changed for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very confident that things are going to the better. It's not going to be an easy journey, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
I do as well. And that's a nice way to wrap it up.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Ibrahim.
Brilliant.
Can I include this now in the episode where you tell me?
Are you trying to scare me off?
You didn't answer any of my questions. Thank you, Ibrahim Mneimneh.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.
That was great.